Yeah, I just now remember. Um, I'm going to live the Zoom on my Facebook, and then after this meeting, I will turn my Facebook on a private mode. Like the video on private on Facebook will be on private mode, but this recording will be submit to IVS, and then we will post it on YouTube as well. So
Wonderful. So exciting.
thank you. Let everybody know about this whole being journey, you know.
Yes.
So where do you live currently?
I am in Central Florida. So I live in a town called Oviedo, which is about 20 minutes from Orlando.
Okay, that's what I remember. I
Yeah,
remember you live in Florida as well.
I do. Hmm.
And
Yes.
so, have you ever met Vero and Giovanni in
Well,
person?
yes, definitely. I we haven't met like outside of the graduation, but I do know like Vera and I are planning to get together very soon. And I actually did not know that Giovanni lived in Florida.
Yes, he does.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have to make sure to connect with him as well.
Yeah. I mean, even though like we have not started, we're just like chatting right now.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
Vero is like kind of like want to move out of the
Hmm.
state of Florida or somewhere just because where she lives, the hurricane and like disaster happen often.
Yes, definitely. Oh, this, yeah. I would love to move as well. I've wanted to move, not necessarily for that reason, but it's so hot here. It's just so hot. And
Uh,
this time of year with the heat and the storms, and then every year you don't know what kind of hurricane season you're gonna have, and it's a
mm,
little bit nerve-wracking um,
mm,
with trees and damage, to property and stuff like that. So
yeah, yeah, I
I know she's
understand.
closer to the water, so that area usually, if you get a hurricane, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. Hey, we just talk about
We were just
you.
talking about you.
Hi, I just want to join and support my girls, Jeff and Leslie.
Oh,
Super excited
so
to
sweet.
listen and join. So yeah,
Yeah.
Leslie, I wanted to know, how are you guys? Everything okay up there?
Oh, we're fine. Yeah, we're fine. Yeah. Nothing. I mean, we've had a lot of rain, but nothing unusually like crazy like down south.
Yeah,
Wow.
cool.
Yeah.
Mm.
You guys
That's
are
that was that's what, like that's what we was talking about. The rain and you and like move out of the state.
yeah.
Yeah, it's slowly drying up little by little, but every day it's
Right.
getting better.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, everybody can come to the Pacific Northwest.
I would love to. Oh my gosh, that's a place I love,
Have you ever been here before?
Yeah, I have. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, we have a lot of rain here, but no flood.
yeah. Yeah. And you have I don't know, just beautiful trees and rocky terrain and yeah, I love living
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Uh, It's like the whole new world to me when I moved here.
Yeah,
So
I bet.
yeah. Sometimes I got bored here too, don't get me wrong. Like after 7 years living here, I got bored and I want to move out of the state. But when I passed that 7 mark, now
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is home.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
that's fun. Okay, let's start. Okay, hi, hello, and welcome to WholeBeing Journey. I am your host, Jasmine on Pham, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today. So this show is dedicated to getting to know each other better as a fellow graduates of the MA in Happiness Study program. And after spending 18 months together in an online learning environment, we now have the opportunity to share our stories and experience more personally. And so today we will dive into our personal backgrounds and the unique journeys that led each of us to the MA in Happiness study. We will discuss how we discovered the program, the insights and experience, we gained during our studies and the impact we have had on our life. So I'm excited to introduce our wonderful guest today, Leslie Ray. Leslie Ray is an inspiring individual whose journey from a vibrant childhood in Guatemala to becoming a life coach during the pandemic is nothing short of remarkable. With a background in molecular diagnostics and a deep passion for personal development, Leslie's exploration of Buddhism and her dedication to well-being have shaped her unique approach to happiness. She brings a wealth of experience to our conversation today. Leslie is also a devoted mother, a passionate flamenco dancer, and an aspiring violinist who cherishes creativity and connection. So I cannot wait to hear about her experience and insights. And without further ado, let's start by exploring her personal background and the path that led her to the MA in Happiness study. Leslie, would you like to begin by sharing your journey with us? Please.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for that introduction. That was beautiful. So yes, as you mentioned, I actually had the wonderful gift of having a father who was very much into philosophy. And while Guatemala is very much a Catholic country, and I was raised Catholic, my dad was very much into exploring other religions, other philosophies, other ways of life, and he had a lot of books. And so very early on, at the age of, I think it was 14 or 15, I read my first book from his library that really changed me. And it started to, I don't know, just inspire me in the way of how our thinking can change our perspective. We can change our stories. We can certainly, take things less personal. Like everything is happening on the inside. I had this big realization that, you know, this can really help, especially me becoming a teenager and you start caring about what other people think, or there's a lot of drama going on. I was like, I don't have to play these games. And so I continued to read, a lot of his books, which, at first it was very much psychology. So it was my first book that I ever read was Your Erroneous Zones by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And then I continued to read other books, like I think it's Live, Love, Learn by Leo Buscaglia, he's one of the first teachers at UCLA who taught A Course in Love, and his kind of like Tao, his courses would just fill up and there was like no room. And I just became very drawn into, the topic of love, the topic of self-love, the topic of just positive thinking, energy, how your energy can literally change a room. And so I continued my journey, and I actually, interestingly enough, I started to ask my parents that I wanted to go to a therapist, even though I didn't necessarily have anything major going on in my life that I needed help with, but I thought I could use, the reflection, having someone to help be a mirror for me. And I understood that I think I was 16, it was 2 years after I read, I started reading those books. And so I'm someone that has had therapy since, 16, and on and off in my life. I just feel like, it's such a blessing to help someone, help you with your thinking, with your perspective, be devil's advocate for some of the things that you believe, challenge your limiting beliefs. And so that was kind of what started me into that journey of being interested in personal development and being, living a more joyful, fulfilling life. Fast forward, I spent my entire, like teenage years and then college years continuing to read and explore that side of myself. I became a mom. I, I never thought about doing it as a career. For some reason, that wasn't something. I mean, I have thought about it in the way that, I would love to be a public speaker, motivational speaker. But I became a mom, and then I became a single mom. And, my career in molecular diagnostics provided, flexibility and a certain income that I needed, as a single parent. So I was like, I'm a big believer in like, not right now. So there's things that I really want to do, but I also know that in life there are stages, where some things we can do right now and some things we can just put them to the side and say, nah, it's not that it's not going to happen, but it's just not right now. So I developed this career in molecular diagnostics, fast forward to the pandemic where everything slowed down, and I think as a collective, were able to listen to things that were coming up for us. And we had a lot of time to reflect. And, something that came up for me during that time was I really need to pursue this in a more serious and in a, this is a very passionate thing for me. It's a purpose. And so I actually had always wanted to take my boys on a road trip of the US. And before the pandemic, they never wanted to because they're super social and they have very close friends at school. And so when the pandemic happened and they were attending virtual school, we decided as a family that we were going to take a road trip. And for the first time, they said, okay, let's do it. And so we took a road trip around the US for about 6 months, different national parks was my goal, was to introduce them to a lot of national parks. That's why we were, on your side of the country. And so during that time, they were doing virtual school, and I decided to go back to school while they were doing their homework in the morning. I was doing my homework and doing, my life coaching certification. So it was really a beautiful start of that process. After I finished the initial certification, I decided to become a trauma-informed coach as well. And I got a certification in transformational leadership, so to facilitate workshops, transformational workshops. And I have a huge love for art. There was something that happened where I traveled somewhere and I learned about acrylic pouring, which I don't know if you know much about acrylic pouring, but I decided to build a shed in my home so that I could do acrylic pouring, because I was taking over like my living room and my dining room table. And, my husband and my kids were already like, you need to stop. So I built that shed with the idea that I was going to paint in it. And then it became this place where I started to host mini workshops and mini retreats. And at some point I thought, I really need to pursue more education in this field. And I was thinking about what I could do. I started to explore different master's degrees. I didn't necessarily want to do anything in psychology, as I said. And I actually enrolled in a neuroscience program at King's College before this one. And it was so hard. I just was like, and it was very clinical. And I was like, okay, this is not what I'm looking for. So then I came across, this program, and I thought it was perfect. So this is how I got here.
That was a wonderful journey. And you got to learn a lot. That's a lot to discuss. Just like within 5 minutes
Yes,
that
I know I
you
gave you a
shared.
lot.
That's wonderful. Actually, that's wonderful because I can prepare a list of questions for you, but I don't think like I need that list anymore. Um, but back forward, you talked about Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Mhm.
So you also mentioned about Buddhism, but like not in your description. So Dr. Wayne talked a lot about Taoism, Lao Shu. Um, did you know about that back when you
Yes.
first discovered it?
No, because I feel like Dr. Wayne Dyer started very clinical as well. His books had a major shift at some point when he became more involved in Buddhism. At first it was, I mean, you can the books, you can see a very big contrast, I think, as I continue to read a lot of his books. But in the beginning, no, I didn't, I guess I didn't know if he was involved personally in Buddhism at that point. but there wasn't anything about it. Now, my dad had a lot of books on Buddhism, and so I was reading those as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And so that's really interesting because, like I would think, a lot of people from South America or Central America, they would talk more about like Christianity or, like different religions than Buddhism. How did you find, so when you are in the MA of Happiness program and you got to learn, Buddhism and Taoism, and then Dr. Wayne also appear in our study as well, how did you feel?
I feel like I was home. I mean, I'm very familiar with the philosophy, and I'm a big fan of Buddhism and Taoism. It's definitely some of my personal values. I think are very much ingrained in that from learning very early on. I don't necessarily practice it in a way that's very structured, but I think that it definitely helped me. It shaped me. It definitely had a big impact, especially doing that kind of work so early on. It shaped a lot of my beliefs, even from a sometimes subconscious, perspective. So when we were covering those areas, it was, it was very exciting and brought up, a lot of things that I feel, I've known for a while. But, I think as we get older too, we are able to take information and take something, every time you learn something and you look at something and you're learning something, even though you've covered it before, you can take another piece, you can learn something new, which of course was the case, in this situation.
Yeah, yes, of course. Absolutely. Just like Tao said, if we have a book, probably anybody who have a book, we could be able to like go back and reread that book. And Tao, we read like Tao, Tao teaching for, his whole life. He keep coming back and we read that.
Right.
So we talk about Buddhism, and let's talk a little bit more about Buddhism. So we learn a few more mantra during our program, and methods have like meditation, and then maybe like mantra, and then some kind of praying that people all around the world practice. Do you practice meditation or like mantra or praying every day?
Not every day. I do. So I'm someone that, like right now, I mentioned when we started the call that I'm going through some personal things. Like right now, I rely heavily on breath work and meditation, and just being very present, trying not to just go into the head, just trying to be very mindfully in my body. On a regular basis, I wish I did a better job at it, but I tend to get, I'm not as structured with that. I do, because I mentioned I'm very much into art, and I'm a dancer, and I'm always working with my hands, whether it's, playing the violin or if I'm painting, and so I find that I do a lot of like moving meditation or meditation in other, in other ways. And I do believe wholeheartedly that meditation is not just the sitting, closing your eyes, and it's very much just being in that flow state, or being very present in your body and with what you're doing rather than in the mind.
Yes, I apply the same thing.
Yes.
I cannot sit and crossing my leg and meditate for a couple hours. Not even 15 minutes. I'm like very I'm not that, I don't practice that sitting meditation, but we have like walking meditation, laying meditation, sleeping meditation, sitting meditation, of course. And so I love how you mentioned about flow state. So have you learned about the flow state before this program, or do you
I have.
learn? Yes.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Briefly, not a lot, but I definitely feel like I understand it. I read this one book. It's called Flow, and I can't. Oh my gosh, I should know the who wrote it, but I can't think of it right now. I can't think of his name. Um, but I feel like, I grew up as a gymnast and a dancer. I danced, tap and jazz as a kid, and I played the piano, and I was a competitive skydiver actually for a few years. And you have to be present to do that, as a competitive, anything that where you have to use your focus to be present. And you go into that state of like, yeah, you're so into what you're doing, and you have to be, because otherwise, for example, in skydiving, if you're not paying attention, it can be very bad. So, but I do feel like I was very familiar with flow state. Yeah.
That is awesome. That is really awesome. That is so true that all of the activity that you have been practice, like drawing, art, dancing, skydiving, almost like everything, even your job, you have to be present. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
you can like a dancer, you cannot miss being present. Otherwise, you can like make a wrong move and you twist your
Right.
body and you hurt your body and stuff
Hurt
like that.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. So how do
Mhm.
you like if anybody tell you and ask if anybody come to you and ask you what is flow, how would you explain to them?
That's a really good question. For me, flow is to be engaged in an activity that you enjoy. I think there's a piece of it where there's got to be a level of enjoyment for you, that you're really, really engaged and interested, where you are kind of only in your body, and you are, um, the thoughts of the day, the busyness, the future, the past, they don't exist. I think that maybe is more, the future and the past don't exist. It's just now. And time can pass, and you don't even know that time is passing, because you're just so present, like moment to moment. I think that along the lines is how I would describe it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't, yes, I feel like a lot of people they so tied up in the idea of time concept, so they can get into the flow state, but one day release that time concept and
Right.
let it go, then they could get into the flow state. Um, wow, that's a lot to say. And if you see the chat box, Vero was like smart, beautiful, creative, adventurous, the whole package. Leslie, fan number one over here,
Oh
and
my God.
Chanel's agree with that too. Um,
Oh, thank you, ladies.
well,
I love you guys.
so the Zoom call is not just for not just for Leslie and me. It's for all of you. So don't hesitate to raise your hand and ask question or interact with Leslie, as we need you. I think Vero is raising her hand right now. Vero, please turn on your mic.
Hi.
Hi.
So, I mean, I know how adventurous you are and everything that you're like jumping into, and how did you sort of take the pace of like this course that it's been, it's almost 2 years of us just kind of like slowly going through all these things, and you have so much going on. Like, how was your approach to the program?
Yeah, you and I have talked about this. I have this side of me that's very adventurous and very wild, and then I have this side of me that's incredibly disciplined. I do think that in order in order for me to do all the things that I do, be a dancer, even in skydiving, I mean, all of those, even in my job for 20 years has been very independent. I work from home. I have to get ready and I have to get out of the house to go, visit doctors, and nobody tells me when to go or what to do. So I have to be very disciplined. So for me, it wasn't necessarily difficult to have, and again, I'm kind of structured within flexibility, because I'm not going to say that I was like, oh, at 9 o'clock every morning, I was doing, it wasn't like that. But I knew that at some point in the day when I had an opening of other things that were going on, it was just that consistency, that mental, like, I'm doing this. It's a commitment. So the commitment kind of shapes the actions, I think. And I'm someone, for example, that has been working out at home for years as well. And I don't have a particular time when I do it, but I do it every day. And at some point, it just kind of fits in. I just have a flow of my day. And whenever I see that window of opportunity, I'm like, oh, it fits right here. So that's really how I approached it. And there were times where maybe I had to do more work over the weekends, or just be a little bit more flexible. Even using the app on the phone, or the platform on the phone when I was, in other places, and just kind of taking advantage of the time. But I think it comes from a place of commitment, of just knowing that, hey, I'm doing this and I just have to get the work done.
Yeah, I think that's the big word, commitment. It's like when when something's super important to you and you make the commitment to do it. It's the same, like when Jasmine, you're talking about like meditation, like I was thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, I used to not have a good time or being able to meditate either, but it was when you make that commitment to do something, like you just sort of make it happen.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like I have that a lot, where I am someone that, like, good enough is good enough for a lot of things, right? For a lot of things, I've always been, um, I'm not a perfectionist in any way. But for those things that I commit to, people think of me as like a perfectionist in some ways, because I'm, committing to these big things. But I'm like, I only commit truly, like that level of commitment is only probably for like maybe 40% of the things I do in my life. All the other things, like, I don't even want to tell you how I handle like my laundry because you guys would be like, oh my gosh. But laundry to me is not a priority, right? It's not something that's like something I'm going to be committed to doing it perfectly. So yes, commitment is a big deal, I think.
Love it.
Thank you, Vero. I see another question from Chanel as well, but before we go to Chanel question, um, I can understand your perspective, just because you are into art, and like like artistic person, of like people, their mind running different way. And I used to learn dancing, ballroom dancing as well, so I know how disciplined dancers should or have, how much, just because they are so detailed. And that's why I kind of gave up on my dream of becoming a dancer. Because people thought being a dancer, you can flow, you can move whatever however you want, but that's not true. Especially learning flamenco dancing, there's so many steps that you have to follow, Leslie has to follow, and that if she doesn't follow, I'm sure her teacher was uh, scouting her or something like that. Could you share more about your um like your passion with flamenco dancing? Just because
Yes.
I love that dancing so much, and how did you decide to learn?
Yeah, that's another great question. So I mentioned that I was a dancer. Well, I was a gymnast and I was a dancer as a kid, and I danced tap and jazz up until I was 18. And then that was when I moved from Guatemala to the US, and I started I went to college. And so my dancing days, I thought, were behind me. And I didn't realize that I'm a dancer. Like, I love to dance. I it is one of my core, one of my core parts. And during the pandemic, again, it was something that came up for me. I was like, man, I really miss that artistic side of me. I think the pandemic for me had this really, really big impact because I was quiet. I was very quiet and I was listening. And I had been to Spain and I had seen flamenco dancing, and I think I had seen it a couple of times. And there's something about flamenco dancing that's so powerful. You know, it's empowering. It is bold. It is not like the dancing that I did as a kid, where it was pretty. You know, as a kid, it was just pretty. It was very feminine, very delicate. Flamenco for me was more of an interpretation or an embodiment of how I want to show up now in the world. You know, as you know, I'm older, I'm more mature, I feel like I'm wiser. And so I had looked it up. I had looked up flamenco, I don't know, maybe like in 2012 or something. And my kids were very little. I was a single parent, as I said. And I was like, again, my thinking was not now, you know, I will do this. And I put it aside and I was like, it's not the stage right now because my kids are little and I can't leave them every night or every other night to go dancing. So fast forward to 2020, this thought comes up again and I'm like, oh, the boys are older. Sometimes, you know, I'm able to leave them alone, you know, now for an hour or an hour and a half. It's fine. They were like 13 and 14 maybe. And, you know, I'm remarried at this point. So, you know, I also don't, you know, I can rely on my husband to stay with them. And I called this particular academy that all of a sudden I had an academy like 5 minutes away from my house and I had no idea they were there. It was just perfect timing. And I went for my first class and I have not looked back. That was in 2021. It was like beginning of 2021. I feel like it was just complete like serendipity for me to meet the teacher. Has become one of my best friends. We actually walked, I don't know if you're familiar with El Camino de Santiago in Spain, where you hike for like, we hiked for like 200 miles and stayed, you know, just overnight in little hostels. Like we ended up doing that trip together last September. So she's become a super close friend of mine. I have found this beautiful community of people that are very passionate about flamenco. I have found a way to channel a lot of who I think I am through flamenco. And the biggest and most beautiful thing is flamenco is the most challenging dance I have ever done, because you are doing something with your feet, right? I had the background with tap, but tap, usually you're just doing something with your feet and that's it. With flamenco, you're doing something with your feet that's very strong, it's very powerful, it's very difficult. And then you're doing the hands that are very soft and they have that Indian, you know, that Indian background. And the feet are trying to like go into the ground, the arms are trying to expand. And then I play the castanets, you know, the little clappy things. And that's literally playing an instrument while I'm doing something with my feet, while I'm doing something with my hands. So my brain, I feel like I've gotten smarter since I started to dance flamenco, because I am building all these neural pathways every day. And talk about a state of flow and a meditation state when you're having to do 3 different things with your body. And then, you know, listening to the music, flamenco music there's 52 different rhythms and they don't sound anything like regular music. And so having to learn new, you know, different rhythms that you have to kind of weave the dancing through, it's beautiful. It's incredibly challenging. I will never stop learning flamenco. That's a fact. Like, even if you have been dancing flamenco for 50 years, you have still not learned everything about flamenco. And it's very culturally diverse. It's not like the other type of dancing like ballet and jazz that you're outdated, you're too old at some point. Flamenco is a dance that, you know, even if you're just sitting and like clapping and, you know, you can still participate. So it's I'm so happy that I found it for so many different reasons.
I'm so happy that I asked you this question as well. Because so for people who have never learned dancing, they would think dancing is hard. And people who have learned dancing, they would think dancing is hard as well, because it's not easy to remember all the steps. And according to Leslie, we have to learn to move our, upper body and lower body. So it's kind of like separate our body. And I feel like this dance connect the spine model as well. It connect your body, like your physical body, your emotional well-being, like physical well-being, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, because you connect intellectual, it's make you smarter, right? And then it creates relational well-being as well, because you have to have relationship with yourself. You have to tell your body to do exactly what you want, not fighting with you, because for a lot of us, when we do exercise, our body don't want to listen to our soul, our inner self. And therefore, it's create a conflict that people think exercise hard and they don't want to exercise. And like, so for you, you apply like all of the discipline in here, all of the, artistic side of you in this dance, and you create this by model through the flamenco dance. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And also like I would not say the universal, because I don't want to base on something outside, but because you want it so much, that's why it's, the dance, that we discover the dance place next to like nearby your house as well.
Yeah, the academy.
So it's kind of like you want it so much that everything happened for you because
Yes.
you want it. That's amazing.
Yes.
And
And it reinforces, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but it really reinforced this idea or this value that I have, which sometimes it's really hard because as a single parent, for example, I wanted to do a lot of different things. And I would get frustrated at times that, man, I can't do this right now. I can't do this right now. But then I switched that perspective to almost like a growth mindset, not yet. It's just not a part of my life yet, but it doesn't mean that not ever. And so I know that perspective and being able to hold and being able to say, okay, it's not yet, but if I try to force it maybe earlier, it may have not been the same experience because I maybe couldn't have dedicated as much time because of the boys, because of my life, what was going on. But when it was time, and it worked out perfect. So, yeah.
yeah, I'm so glad. I saw Javier raising his hand, but I want to go back to Chanel question. Do you want to add anything that relate to this comment, Javier?
I'm sorry, which one?
Yes, I got it. Hi. The thing is, no, I just wanted to make a comment. As Leslie was speaking about flamenco, that I just wanted to share this insight that I never thought of flamenco as being grounded by the stomping, but at the same time being in the air by using your mudras, type of mudras, which is from India. And what I like about it is that you are pretty much describing the philosophy of El Quijote, which is you have to be grounded, like Sancho Panza, a pragmatic person, but also you have to be an idealistic individual, which is Don Quixote. So when you have the grounded and the ideal combined, that's where you get basically flow. So I like, I never thought of that, being grounded in flamenco. So I just wanted to mention that, that similarity that I found.
Yeah, thank you, Javier. That is beautiful. I have like this big smile and I'm like, that is so true. It is so true about, the Don Quixote and Sancho Panza.
Excellent. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you as well.
I got goosebumps. I can see that the next gathering offline, we will see you teaching us flamenco dancing.
Yes. Oh my God, that would be so great. I would love to.
We learn like flamenco dancing from Leslie and meditation from Vero.
Yes.
I see Nelly also raising her hand. Do you want to make a comment about this? Yes. Okay. Please.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say hi, Leslie. It's nice to see you again because I saw you at the New Jersey retreat.
Yes, nice to
Brief.
see you.
Nice to see you. But what I was thinking is like I took some notes of what you were saying because I don't know, I've never thought about me dancing flamenco, but the way that you described it, it just made me, just want to Google and search to see if there's any flamenco classes here where I live. But I just wanted to say that I really love what you said about, embodying how you want to show up in the world, using flamenco to do that. And, I also loved what you said because, a lot of people say that dancing is one of the best forms of exercise. Some people say that it's the best one, right? Because you kind of connected this idea in my head because you said, you're building neural pathways. You're entering into a flow state because you enjoy it and it's challenging enough, right? So there's that combination. Then you go into a meditative state, but because it has the present moment awareness. And I also love the concentration, focus, and how you're also improving your memory. So I was just thinking like, oh my God, there's so many benefits to it because, she just went through the spire. But I also love to, when it comes to the embodying how you want to show up in the world and, certain character traits that you would like to cultivate. And that caught a lot of my attention too, because, when I think about flamenco, I see strength, elegance, like a fierce force, and also expressing the full gamut of emotions from sadness to maybe joy. So I just want to say I loved everything that you just shared with us. I may try it out. I just need to get some castañuelas.
Please keep me posted if you do. Please keep me posted, and if there's anything I can do to support you, if you're doing research, and even if you do join and you need to know about shoes or castañuelas or anything like that, I am happy to help guide you through the process. It would make me so happy to have influence. I think we should all be dancing flamenco, and not necessarily at the same level professionally, but again, I do believe that all the things that you said, connecting all those, the brain, the meditation, the flow state, the emotional state, everything is actually connected. And you may be able to do that with other dances. If you've never danced, you can achieve that with, let's say a salsa, bachata. I just find that flamenco, for me, since I was a dancer before and it has all those different elements, it's incredibly challenging. Now, I can tell you a lot of people start flamenco with no dance experience and they do really well as well. Maybe the progress is just a little bit slower, but I would consider and recommend it to anybody. So I'm excited that it landed.
Thank you. I have hope.
Yes. Oh, you're going to do great. You're going to do great.
I'm so excited. If everybody can dance flamenco, we're going to have oh my God, a beautiful dance floor at the MA retreat, or like the certificate retreat. Yeah.
Yes.
It's beautiful too, and I love the color, the dress that they wear, and the vibrant color.
Very. Yes.
Everything's pretty. Anyway, so now we go back to parenting. Back to parenting. So Chanel, question is, I love to hear about how this journey has impacted your parenting skills and desire for your boys.
Oh, that's a great question. So, I feel like the journey in parenting for me started, before, and this course just, reassured me that I was in a path. And when I say it started earlier, of course, I became a mom a long time ago, but I wasn't necessarily as conscious in the first few years of my boys' life as far as like the impact, how much impact I could have on their life. I feel like there's not as much, or at least, the way that I grew up, it was like, if you're fed, if you're feeding your kids, they have a roof over their head, and, you're giving them an education and whatnot, they're good, and that's kind of how I grew up. And at first, maybe I was practicing a little bit of that. Of course, I'm a very loving person, so I always shower them with love. But even in my discipline and, my discipline strategies, I think in the beginning of parenting, I have some moments that I look back and I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have never done that. Like I was spanked as a kid. And I think I spanked my kids a couple times when they were young. And I regret it wholeheartedly. And when I learned, I started again, I always read books about personal development, and that was part of who I was. And then I was like, wait a minute, I should be educating myself about this really important job. And I started to read, and understand again our nervous system and, the formative years of a child and all of these things. And so I kind of shifted a lot. And again, the pandemic, because we were traveling and I was learning about life coaching, I actually developed these workbooks for my kids to teach them a lot about communication strategies, different emotional tools for them to help regulate themselves. I started to have like family meetings with them where we were discussing more consciously, like what was going on in our family. I started to ask them a lot more questions about who they were. And so, I don't know, I feel like I became a lot more conscious. And then this program has just helped me. It's overwhelming at times because there's so much that I would want to teach them. Like sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, can I just download all this information and just plug it into their head? Like, can I just please? And I know that it's their journey and they're gonna, not learn how I'm learning. And, I'm gonna be 46. They're, 14 and 16 or 15 and 16. So they have a long way to go and I have to let them learn on their own. But I am trying to provide, during our family meetings, for example, I'll take a topic, something, and I have to really shorten it because they have a very short attention span. What we have for like a 20-minute or a 30-minute lesson, I have to put it in like a 3-minute, conversation. But I do try to incorporate in our meetings. So we have a weekly meeting where we have a very short agenda of just a few things that I like to go over with them, but then it always ends with a topic. And so the topic usually is something that I've brought in from the course. So I don't know
Wow,
if that answers the question.
that is a very dedicated like thing that you do for your family and your sons. So do you explain to them the SPY model?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about the Spire model all the time. I actually try to encourage them every day. Obviously we all know the big problem with social media, with electronics, and my kids are not immune to it. I mean, I do control their times. I have very strict controls over the Wi-Fi at the house and the phone use and everything. And I'm a super easygoing mom, but like if you ask them, if I'm strict, they'll say, "Oh yeah, she's really strict," but it's only because of the Wi-Fi. It's because of the electronics. But I try to every day encourage them to check off something of Spire. So especially right now during the summer, I've been very, very conscious about saying, check off something on each one of these items, have a physical win, and they do. They go to the gym, they play a lot of sports. They're incredibly social. And I'm so glad because they get to practice their relationships and relating to others all the time. So, getting together with friends, I really encourage that. So I try to say, hey, every day, what's your purpose today? Tell me what you're trying, even if it's just for today. It doesn't have to be a purpose or do you have a purpose for the summer? What are you trying to accomplish? And I do explain and I talk to them about how, these are things that are they don't know it yet, and they may not feel it. They think they can just be on their phone all day and just get together with friends, and that's going to be their happy life. And maybe right now, it is. But I am, because I am very disciplined, I do feel like habits are so important to form early on, because it's a lot harder to form a habit when you're an adult than, when you're younger. And so, I do try to encourage them to do those, those, I hate to say a list because I don't necessarily want them to operate from a list place, but just to have it in their mind that, there's all these parts of them and parts of their life that will contribute to a much more fulfilling life.
Yeah. It's so it's so powerful to become, a good mom. Just because we can become mom, but it's not, it's become like a mom and friend and a coach to our child. That is a whole other job.
It's a whole other ball game. Yes. It's hard to
Yes.
balance too. Yeah.
So that's exactly what I want to ask you. How do you balance your roles as a mom and, as a coach and, as yourself, like being the
Yeah.
dancer, play violins, or like just separate yourself in different role?
Yeah. So, I think that there's something about me that I really love having different roles. I've never thought of myself as a linear, like I'm just this one thing. So I really enjoy it. And I think that's part of it. I really enjoy being multifaceted. I'm a very, people sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you into now? What are you getting into now? And um, so that is just something maybe that is very, it's part of my essence and it's very natural for me. Then I have that discipline that I've talked about. I am very big on practicing things, obviously because of my background, like practice is everything. And so what I practice every day, whatever I'm committed to, we talked about commitment in the beginning. If I'm committed to something, I know I'm going to practice it. And that's the only way that I'm actually going to see results. For me, that's, just, there's no results without putting the time and putting the effort. And, I kind of flow through my day. I don't know how to explain it, because I'm not super scheduled either. I'm not someone that's like, I have to do this for like my calendar oftentimes looks very blank, but I know I have all these things that I have to do. And it's just more that it's easy for me to switch from one task to another. And I don't necessarily, I'm not someone that has to put 3 hours into something every day. Like, I'm like, okay, I did this for 30 minutes. I'm going to shift. I did this for an hour. I'm going to shift. But I'm just very consistent in doing it very frequently. And it adds variety to my day. It feels like my day is not just this one thing that I did. I don't watch a whole lot of TV. And it's been a long time. I mean, I do love like watching a good movie, but I'm not someone that, unless someone recommends like a series and they're like, oh, you have to watch this. I'm not someone that like intentionally goes looking for a series because then I get so hooked and then I can't stop. so occasionally I of course give myself downtime and I love watching a good movie, but I'm not a big TV person. So I feel like I'm good managing my time.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's the next question, Vero, want to ask you that with everything we learn in this program and all the different activities you are involved in, um, there's something stuck with you that you added into your routine or caused you to change?
Yeah, actually, I love that question. I actually slowed down. So there was something that stuck with me, and not necessarily slowing down and doing less, but slowing down in not thinking about the next thing. What's the next thing that I'm doing? But just doing the one thing now, being very present and not feeling like I had to rush. When I was a single parent, I had a lot of that. And I think that became very ingrained in my nervous system because I was always, I was traveling for work. I don't have any family in the US. And so I literally was raising my kids, just me. And so I had to drop him off at daycare in the morning, and I had a very large territory for my work. So I was traveling during the day, and sometimes, you know, driving back in rush hour traffic and knowing like, oh my gosh, if I'm late to daycare, they're going to start charging me by the minute. And then getting home and being, you know, dinner time, bath time, bedtime, and then potentially having to go back to work, you know, to finish some of my, you know, administrative tasks and whatnot. That time, you know, again, I realized it during the pandemic that my nervous system was very like just rushing. I was in autopilot, you know, and so I feel like this program specifically helped me with that, because there was still a lot of that in me, even though, you know, it was post-pandemic, but I still had that autopilot. And so now I'm just really a lot more mindful. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen sometimes, but I'm a lot more mindful when I notice that I'm rushing through things. And like, even when it's that I'm busier or that I have the most things to do, that's when I need it the most, to like hold and just be like, I'm just going to slow down, and I'm going to calm my nervous system, and do some breath work. I'm going to, you know, just chill and just feel my body. And so I think that's the one thing that really has stuck for me.
That is powerful. The one thing and the most powerful thing, slowing down but not slowing.
Right.
Yeah. That you
Yes.
become the watcher and the observer of your life, not, you know, being controlled by your autopilot and people. That is really powerful, because you become your own boss.
Yes.
You become your own boss. You can see, you can overcome things because you now can see and watch and observe, not really but get influenced by, you know, people and other people energy. Because you are very, like, if we talk about the spiritual part, you know, not the spiritual in the spirit in the spy, but the spiritual outside the spy, you can send people energy super quick. And so that could influence your life. If you are not slowing down, you will be easily get pulled by other people energy without knowing it. So this is powerful, that how, you know, the whole course, whatever word I forgot, but anyway, you get what I mean. That's powerful, Leslie. That's congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jasmine. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. So next question from Ben, and I I saw him keep coming on skydiving, and I know that he want to ask that question, but that's why he asked this question. How did you get to do your first skydiving? How was
Yeah, so it's a really funny story. I dated someone for about 4 years. And he had talked to me about skydive. I'd never wanted to skydive, I've never done a tandem, by the way. Tandem is when you go with someone, right? And when I thought about someone else taking me on a tandem, I was like, absolutely not. There's never a time that I'm going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane and do that. So, you know, now I'm dating this guy who's super adventurous, and he's like, you know, you can get certified to do it on your own. And that, when he said on my own, which is interesting because most people would probably be maybe more comfortable with someone else taking them. I'm like, I want to do it on my, you know, on my own. Maybe it's like a trust thing or a control thing, but you know, I was like, oh, I can maybe. I said, we'll go do the class. And so there's an 8-hour ground school that you have to do your first jump. And so I learned about, you know, you learn about the equipment. Most importantly, you have to learn about body positioning in the sky. It's all about positioning your body a certain way, because otherwise you're going to be tumbling and you're going to be out of control. And so I was like, oh, I've been a dancer. I'm a gymnast. Like, I have full body awareness. Like, and the equipment is really not that difficult. So we finished our first, you know, our course, and there was a weather hold. There were some clouds, and they said, you know, you guys can't do your first jump today. And I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't even sure if I was going to do it anyway. And so we were starting to leave the drop zone. The drop zone that's what you call the place where you go jump. So we were starting to leave the drop zone, and the instructors come out and say, oh, the weather holds off. You guys are on a call in 15 minutes. A call, when you're on a call, means you have to be in the loading zone in 15 minutes. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe this is the right way to do it, because if I think overnight, or if I, think too much about it, I'm not going to do it. So I just went, got dressed, put my suit on, put my gear on. In 15 minutes, I'm out there and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy. So I get in the plane, and so when you do this, it's called AFF. It's an accelerated free fall course. Yeah. So the accelerated free fall course, you do go up with instructors, but the instructor, you're not attached to anyone. So there's 2 instructors that jump with you. And then when you deploy your parachute, they leave. So you do your landing on your own. And so, my 2 instructors are there with me, and I am just like in a different world. I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm in a different reality right now. This is so scary. So I did ask one of the instructors, I said, if I go up there, because I've heard that some instructors will push you out, but that's only with tandems. With tandems, if you go up, they're like, we're going, and some instructors do that. But with AFF, when you're doing it on your own, they said they never do it. And they said, if we go up there and you look at me and you tell me you don't want to do this, we're riding the plane back down. And I was like, you promise? And that just, calmed me down, because it allowed me to get to altitude, which is 14,000 feet. It takes about 20 minutes to get up there. It allowed me to get up there calmly, just to be like, you know what? I mean, sort of calmly. I still was nervous, but to say, okay, I'll see how I feel up there. And then once I got up there, I had been practicing. I'm big on breath work, and I've learned a lot of different. At that point, I think I had learned, a lot of yogic type breath work to calm myself down. And so I was just practicing that the whole way up, so that I wouldn't be incredibly like anxious. And then I took that first jump, and by the time I landed, I had this moment where I was like, I'm never going to be the same person again. Never. After this experience, I have done one of the scariest things, and I landed fine. You have a radio, so when you're landing, they're kind of giving you like instructions, but you do have to know what you're doing. But you're so nervous, and that's the focus. You have to focus so much, right? And so I landed, and I had this incredible amount of adrenaline and endorphins and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am hooked. I am so hooked. So anyway, it takes 7 jumps to get your certification. So I came back a few times, of course, to finish the certification. And then there was a guy at the drop zone who he likes to recruit new people to try to teach you, because, at this point, the 7 jumps, you're literally just like falling, trying not to tumble. Then you start learning, and I know I saw the question of like, is it dancing in the sky? It actually does become like dancing in the sky, and you have to become so aware of your body, because any little input in the air of your body has a huge impact. Like, you can lower your arm a little bit and you start turning. You can stretch out your legs and you start going like Superman, like way forward. I mean, it's little tiny inputs just create all this movement in the sky. So I don't know if you've ever seen those indoor skydiving tunnels, the iFly. So one of the instructors said, we can practice in the tunnel, and then we can, you can become part of a 4-way team. And, he said, I see some talent, you have a lot of body awareness. And so I started doing that. And it was, it is immediate flow state. One, especially you're working with 3 other people in the 4-way teams. I actually competed at the national level in an 8-way team, which you can't really practice in the tunnels, except in North Carolina. There's one tunnel that fits an 8-way group, but the 4-way groups, you practice in the regular ones. And now it's this beautiful dance. And if you're not doing it right, you are hurting yourself, because collapsing with each other in the air is really hard. It can actually be really, really painful and dangerous. So you have to be now working with other bodies and be so connected with their energy and their pace. And yeah, I did it for about, let's see, I don't know, it was probably like 6 years. I did end up having an injury. So I broke my ankle, and unfortunately I have a plate and screws and, you know, all of the things in my left foot. And at the time, my boys were little still, you know, they were like 6 and 7. And I just felt like it was too much of a risk, because even just breaking an ankle, at that point I was still a single parent, and I remember having one of those scooters, you know, the ankle scooters where you lift your ankle and it has a little basket, and my boys were so unaware, because they were so little, of like how much work it was for me to go around places with them. They would just give me all their stuff, put it in the basket, but our life didn't slow down, you know, it didn't slow down. So I'm going everywhere with the scooter, and you know, it hurt a lot to have that kind of a surgery, to get screws and plates put into your bone. And so I remember thinking, man, this is not worth it, even if I don't have like a major accident in skydiving, but if I'm constantly, there were a lot of constant injuries that were happening. You know, you leave, when you exit the plane, for example, you exit the plane as a group. So you have grips on your suit and you're exiting like 4 or 8 at a time. And oftentimes, you know, you get like your shoulders pulled, or you get knocked into the door, into the, you know, the plane door. And then the next day you have this giant bruise. And so I was pretty banged up a lot. And I was like, I don't know if, you know, maybe I need to put a hold on this until my boys are a little bit older. So
Wow. That's that is an experience. What an experience.
yes.
That is amazing. And your body is fully recovered.
Yes. The ankle, especially with flamenco, the left
Mm,
ankle, definitely. If I dance a lot, I'll
mm,
feel it a little bit. There's something that I do with my hip on the left side too that is causing a little bit of like hip
mm,
issues, just because of the ankle. It's almost 100%, but my ankle is not, like the flexion is a little bit limited.
mm.
So I compensate, but overall, I mean, yes, my body is good. And now, because of dancing, I just take so much more, you know, I'm more careful because
Mhm.
I enjoy it so much. I
Yeah.
don't want to take a risk in losing what I get out of flamenco.
Yeah. Yes. Wow. Wow. It's such a story, Leslie, that, you know, if you have never shared the story to anybody, then everybody would think, like, personally, I would think you are, have like, mostly like a housewife and a coach, like beautiful coach and housewife and mother. You know, I would not know your whole background, you
Yeah.
know, with like this much of effort and energy and passion um, that you have with your life and yourself and your love with art. Yeah, that what a wonderful story journey.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And can you share more with us? Let me see. Let me find a good question for you. So, so because you have done everything and you try everything that you want to do in life, so what are some of the most transformative experience or workshop that you have facilitated as a life coach or as a coach? Because of your, you know, full experience like this, I'm
Yeah.
sure you could be able to, you know, choose what to share with other people.
Yeah, I mean, one that stands out most recently. So I am actually the chair of the PTSA at my boys' high school, the chair for mental health and wellness. So, you know, PTSA, PTA, you know, I joined last year, and they have a club. They have the health and wellness club. It's a small club. They only have about, I don't know, maybe like 15 kids from the high school that come every Monday. And so I come in once a month to do some sort of a workshop with them. And I think the last one that I did was really impactful, because um it was about, you know, safe communication, and it was about being a safe communicator in relationships, you know, how that affects your relationships. And I was amazed. I did go through Spire with them. And I feel like it was, yeah, we obviously went over like we focused on relational health or relational well-being. And there was just so much engagement. The kids they were participating so much. They had so many questions. Oftentimes I find that with other topics, they like the bell would ring and they're like out the door. They're like, I've lost them. They're gone. This one, the bell rang and they were staying. They wanted to keep the conversation going. And so it really warmed my heart, because it's very clear that people at all ages, and it was great to see even, the younger generations, like they want to know more about relationality. They want to know what they can do better. They're affected by it. There were some really key questions. Especially I was surprised from boys, about around boundaries. And so it was really cool. It was very, I feel like I had a lot of impact. But it was, that they were really engaged and very interested.
Yeah, that's awesome. And also thank you to sharing the SPY model to all of the young generation.
Yeah.
It's so neat. They could learn so much. And last week I went back to learn all of the material that we learned from our MA, and also like learning with the certificate students. I discovered that something that I forgot, that Tao is the one. Tao was with two more students of him, creating the aspire, describe, and prescribe model. Do you also use that for the kid to
I
practice?
haven't used it much. No, I really haven't.
Yeah, I found that really useful, just because we can score ourselves, we can look at give ourselves a score for well-being, physical
Yes.
well-being, or the five well-being that we have.
Yeah, no,
And
it's a great, I use it for myself, but I haven't used it, which is a great suggestion, to use it to kind of give yourself a an assessment or an evaluation of where you are. Yeah.
exactly. And I also suggest one of the student in the new certificate program, she kind of like managed business with a lot of employee. So I share with her that maybe she can apply that SPY model evaluation, for her team, herself and her team first, and see how it works. Cause How already have the guideline and explanation why we should do it, and then we ourselves can kind of like understand why we don't do the thing that we should do, and it's a quick reminder.
Yes.
I think it's really useful. So like back to another question before the time ends. What advice would you give to someone looking to find joy and fulfillment in their life?
That is such a good question, and it's probably a very long answer. Let me see what advice I would give them. So definitely, I feel like you have to know yourself. You have to make it a point to really live authentically to who you are and move from that place. And that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, there's a lot of growth and a lot of introspection that needs to happen to get to a point where you actually know yourself. And not that you perfectly know yourself at some point, because we're constantly changing as well. But to make it a point to come from a place of authenticity, and from that place of authenticity, you can use again some of the Spire elements, right, to focus on all these different aspects of life and of who we are as humans, and nourish and focus on those things, right, and also to pay attention. For me, for example, one of the things that is really key for my fulfillment, not that the other ones aren't, but one that I notice is really, really key, is the intellectual piece. And I thought intellectual well-being before was like more academic. And I realized that I'm actually very intellectual because I like to try things for myself. I really like to be hands-on. So it's the action. I take a lot of action. And then I give myself permission to reflect and say, this was for me. I loved it. Or say, and it's happened before where, even with jobs, like it happened recently where I joined a company April 1st, big company, very prestigious company. And a month later, I decided it wasn't for me. The culture wasn't for me. And a lot of people would probably have a hard time making that decision. You'd feel like, gosh, I just joined a company, I'm not going to do this. But I think that, again, living from that place of authenticity and giving yourself, of course, permission to, be human. And that has a lot to do with giving yourself permission to try things, to figure out like what you like, what you don't like, what aligns with your values, what doesn't. So it's a combination of a lot of things, but I would say authenticity to be able to then assess with those spire elements, what truly brings joy to your life and how you can show up the best to also bring joy to other people in your life and to have that purpose.
Yes. Yes. Ben saying that, Leslie, your story is powerful. I believe you are destined to walk the happiness journey. Your experience can help so many people reach enlightenment and awakening. That's a very strong.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. That's very sweet. I appreciate it very much.
Yes, that's a very powerful and strong statement.
Yes. Thank
Yes. Wow, such a journey. We still have time for some more personal questions. I keep wanting to hear your story. Remember one time you shared with us a video of you dressing as a dinosaur for your son. And then like you draw of the art work that you did. And we learn about emotional art. And you kind of like invite people to come and see all your art. Tao got so happy and inspired by your work, and so he decided to introduce you to the researcher who researched.
James Kowalski.
And so did he end up introduce you to James? Or
No, actually he didn't. I think he was just going to share the project. He shared it was actually my birthday party for my 45th birthday last year. I decided to I loved emotional art. I love the idea of emotional portfolios because I love art, and I just think it's such a great to connect art with how we're feeling, and especially if there's a particular feeling that we want to feel more of, to use art to make that feeling expand. So for my 45th, I was feeling the feeling was freedom, feeling free. And so I asked my friends to share with me, I was inviting them to my party, and then I asked them to share with me before the party a piece or a couple pieces of art that made them feel free. And it was a great exercise because it took a few weeks. And people were having a hard time with it. I was making them think. They were like, oh, I've never thought about what that would even look like for me in art form. Or, some people were having a hard time because they weren't feeling very free in their current, situation. And it was, a lot of things were coming up and challenging themselves. So anyways, for, I don't know, I think it was maybe 2-3 weeks, I was just getting all these pieces of art, and it was an ongoing conversation, and it was all like digital. And then what I did was, for the party, I actually printed everything in like cardboard, and I created like an art gallery in my house. And so when people came over, we had a discussion about freedom. First, we sat down. It was not super formal, but it was, kind of like a guided conversation. Let's talk about what makes you feel free. And then once we finished dinner, we walked around the art gallery, and, there were people who didn't know each other. This was a fairly large group. I had I love string instruments. That's why I'm learning to play the violin. So I had a quartet that came to play, and they played all songs that I had kind of curated the list for songs about freedom. And so we listened to that first, and then once that was done, we walked around. I introduced people, and I said, you know, the direction was, you know, if this is your piece of art, stand by it, and then people will come to talk to you, and you can tell them the story about why this speaks about freedom to you. And I mean, some of the most meaningful conversations came up, you know, some vulnerability, some stories, some personal stories, and there was just a lot of connection, you know, around this event, and we were all feeling super free, and you know, there was this really, really great energy. And then I ended up giving the pieces, you know, again, they were printed. It wasn't like it was a canvas or anything, but I gave the piece of art to whoever sent it to me, you know, like, so they could take it home, since it was something that spoke to them about freedom. And most of them hung it, you know, they have it in their office or they have it somewhere. And yeah, it was just a great event. I enjoyed it so much. I think, you know, it's a cool idea for an event. And then I know you asked me about the dinosaur with my son. Yeah, that's funny. I love those dinosaur costumes, and I got mine. I saw it, I don't know, somewhere on Facebook or something. This was back in 2016, I think, or 15. And I got myself one, and I asked Max, my youngest, one morning. I said, do you want me to wear this? And because I used to walk them to school. Actually, I asked both of them. It was funny. I asked both of them. And I used to walk them to school, and I said, I can walk you to school in the dinosaur. And of course, my youngest was like, yes, let's do it, Mom. This is so fun. And my oldest was already, I think, a little bit like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, it's a little embarrassing. I was like, okay, don't worry. You know, my husband, you know, walked him or took him in the car maybe. And so my little guy was just so excited, because here I am, you know, this dinosaur, you know, we're holding hands down the street in the middle of like morning traffic, and I'm walking him to school. And I think I had posted something about me getting the costume. And so one of my friends messages me a little bit like later, like 2 hours after I walked him to school. And she sends me a screenshot of the news. And she says, is this you? I feel like you just got this costume. And I said, yeah, it's actually me. And she's like, well, you've gone viral. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, somebody took a video of you walking your son to school on the you know, on the street, and it's on all the news channels. And I was like, I even had like Good Morning America call me about this. I went and did some interviews, because people were like, what was this about? Why, you know, why did you do this? And it was so cool. And it was a cool, like, I think it lasted like 2 weeks of us like doing interviews. And now even the oldest was like, oh, I want to go with you to the interviews. I was like, oh, you didn't want to walk with me with the costume. But it was a really good message, because I do try, and I have tried since they're very, very little, to just do stuff that's fun, you know, like if you're not hurting anybody, try not to let society get to you, you know, because you can have a lot of fun. And so they heard me repeat that story a lot during the interviews, and they even got interviewed. The boys got interviewed, and they were like, oh, you know, we think it's very cool that she's trying to teach a lesson in a really fun way. And so it was a great experience. Yeah, it was fun. I am called, if you Google me, I'll come up as T-Rex mom. That is, you know, there's still a lot of news like leftovers online.
Ben was like, what month of the year was it?
What month of the year was it? I don't know.
Probably
But
not
if you-
summer.
Maybe no, it was not. Well, maybe, but I don't think. No, it was April. It was April, because it was around my oldest birthday. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was so
Not supposed to
impressed
say.
and admire you at the same time when, you know, you posted in our discussion group. I was
Yeah.
like, wow. Even me, I have never dressed for Halloween, because for some reason, I don't know. It's not like a culture to me, even though I loved it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I have never dressed for Halloween. And I bought a lot of costume, but I have never dressed for it. So I admire you so much, and the
Aw,
effort that you make. You are so talented. You should, you know, spread this art, love, and your enthusiasm to, you know, people around you and people who get to know you
Oh,
more.
thank you.
Yeah, I
really-
see a hand from Javier.
Yes.
Very, very quick, Leslie. Thank you for your story. The thing when I'm listening to you, I'm getting some insights at the same time. And I saw the video of you walking with your kid, and that reminds me of King Solomon advice. He says, "Be joyful and do good."
Mm.
Exactly what you're doing. Be joyful and do good. So that was very nice. You know, I really enjoyed your video. Also, when you were speaking about you know, how you keep your schedule, that you don't have that much rigidity or, you know, things in your agenda, that reminds me of one person that I admire a lot is Warren Buffett. He says that he has a blank agenda because what he does is that he is pulled by the thing that gives him energy. He loves his job in such a way that he doesn't need to schedule. He has pretty much doing the stuff that gives him energy. He enjoys the people he's with, and he's reading a lot, stuff that he's being attracted to. So that was just reminding. I just wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I actually did not know that about Warren Buffett. My husband is a big fan, but I did not know that he has an open schedule.
Yeah.
And I hear that and it lands with me. Like I go where the energy is for me, for sure.
Yeah. So that, of course, that's the ideal type of situation which you are getting close to it. And fun to share.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Javier. I love the two of the quote that you just shared as well. I did not know that. And I usually don't make a schedule for everything either. Sometimes I feel like, why I'm so free? I have nothing to do. And now that I have a lot of things to do that I don't even know.
Yes, exactly.
But we give ourselves permission to be human, for sure.
Yes, definitely. Permission to be human. Yes.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you, Leslie, for being here with us today. Before you go, would you like to share with us your insightful wisdom, like a golden key? Just if you can share anything for us to unlock our door to happiness, what would you share?
I think it would be a little bit of what I mentioned earlier. For me, I think a joyful life and happiness is not something that happens by chance. It's also not just a way of thinking. It really is a way of being. And that means that, you know, we make a commitment and then we have to show up. We have to practice, you know, even the way we talk to one another, the way, you know, your reactions are, the way, you know, parenting, it's a practice, and you can only have the outcome of a fulfilling life by doing and taking the actions that will give you a fulfilling life. You can't expect a fulfilling life if your actions are not aligned with that, you know? So I do think that for me, it's habits and practice.
Wow, thank you. Yes, so joyful and happiness doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
We have to practice it. Yes, we have to be mindful in it and practice. And yes, thank you so much, Leslie. And thank you,
This
Javier,
was wonderful.
Vero.
Thank
Hi,
you so much. I
Lemonade.
had so much fun. Thanks everyone for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Amazing. Great discussion. Thank you for sharing all of your passions with us. Love it.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, one more question. Now I see there. So, if you get a chance to interview anybody, who would you like to interview
Oh,
in our MA group?
I would like to interview you.
Me? Okay, perfect. We're going to do that someday,
Yes,
for
yes,
sure.
yes, absolutely.
Well, I did not expect these answers, but thank you so much for thinking of me.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I love everything that you're doing. I love your mindfulness and, you know, the questions that you ask and your presence. And yeah, I'd love to know your journey.
Thank you. Hello, Chanel.
Hey everyone, I just want to say Leslie, awesome, Jasmine, amazing. So glad to be here. And Leslie, I need a nap after just thinking about everything you do. I have so many goals now.
Wow.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Chanel, for being here. You are one of the person that in my list that I would like to interview as well. Yes. So I can, like we can talk after the chat, and because so many of us have still work, it's just in my mind. I feel like everybody have a free time because I'm free all the time. So, so sometimes we can have different time than today. Like we can have Tuesday evening if people who are still working, they cannot join like at the time that we have right now for Wednesday. We can also do like Tuesday evening as well. So I have not had people who come to the Tuesday evening spot yet, who wanna do the Tuesday evening spot yet, but eventually I could have a few interview at that time as well. Well, again, thank you again for everything that you have done for us, Leslie. You brought so many insightful and then joyful and like your wisdom and energetic energetic energy, and like your just by just you being here beautiful, it just brought so much joy to me and everybody here in the room. um and yes, please keep spreading your love with art and all of your experience with other people. I feel like you have spread this motivation energy to a lot of us today. And I feel like that is your purpose in this life.
Thank you.
This
I
is what you
appreciate
should do, and you should share with other people. Yeah.
Thank you. That means a lot. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And everybody who live in Florida, please don't hesitate to contact Leslie or Vero, because they they are here for all of us. And I don't know where Xavier live and Chanel as well. So everybody who live in, yes, where do you live, Javier?
Miami.
Oh,
We're all in Florida.
yeah, I'm Florida.
See?
That's amazing.
Yes.
We can do a
Yes.
tour to Florida and visit all of the major cities.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
but by the way, Florida is from the Spanish, which is flowers, which is flourishing, so we're into the flourishing in Florida,
Yes, yes, that's amazing. Well, I always want to go back to Florida to visit my friends, because I used to live in Orlando, Florida as well, for the short time. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for all being here today, and then we will see you again next week. We also have another Spanish guest next week, and she's moved from the state all the way to Brazil, and now she's live in, like, she stay here for a few months to visit her family. But we cannot wait to have a conversation with our next guest, and she has so many things to share with us, just like Leslie today as well. Thank you for being here, Leslie, Javier, Chanel, Vero, Lan, and everybody. And I cannot wait to listen to all of you. I cannot wait to invite all of you to our interview talk show, and listen to all of your insiders. And have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thanks so
Thank-
much.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
Bye bye.
Bye everyone.